Okay, number 2, you're multiplying a monomial by a monomial. So there's no plus or minus signs, it's all multiplication. I can rewrite it in any order I want. So I'm going to group the negative 5 times the 4. I'm going to put the m's next to each other, and I'm going to put the n's next to each other. I'm going to go ahead and put that 1 on that m so I don't forget that it has an exponent. Then when I simplify, negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. When you multiply like bases, you add the exponent, so 1 plus 2 is 3. When you multiply n times n, you add 3 plus 2 and you get 5. Number 10 is a distributive property. So you're going to distribute that negative 3x. So you're going to have negative 3x times x squared. You're going to have negative 3x times negative 4x. And you're going to have negative 3x times a positive 6. So I'm going to put the 1 on every one of my variables so I don't forget that there's actually an exponent there. So this is negative 3, x times x, you keep the x, you add the exponents. 1 plus 2 is 3. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. X times x, keep the x, add 1 and 1, you get 2. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18, and then you got to multiply by x. Number 16 is either FOIL, double distributive, or box. I like to do box. So I'm going to have a y minus 3 across the top, a y minus 5 down the bottom. So then y times y is y squared. Negative 3 times y is negative 3y. Y times negative 5 is negative 5y. And negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. So I only had a single y squared, but I've got a negative 3y and a negative 5y. Same signs, add, keep the sign. So that's going to be a negative 8y plus 15. Number 20, binomial times a trinomial. I always like to do the box for those. So x squared, negative 5x plus 2. Now you could have also just did double distributive property. You don't have to do the box. So when I do the box, if I go up, I've got x squared. I go to the side, I got 3x. I'm going to put a 1 there. So 3 times 1 is 3. X to the first times x to the second. Keep the x, add 1 plus 2. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. X times x, keep the x, add 1 plus 1, and get 2. 2 times 3x is 6x. 1x squared times 4 is 4x squared. 4 times negative 5x is negative 20x. And 4 times 2 is 8. So my highest exponent's a 3, so I'm going to start with that. My next exponent's a 2, of which these two are like terms. So if I add those together, different signs really means I subtract. So 15 minus 4 is 11. When you add, exponents do not change. I have to keep the sign on the 15, which was negative. Then the x's are like terms. So if I do negative 20x plus 6x, different signs, I have to subtract. So 20 minus 6 is 14. Variables don't change when you add. I've got to keep the sign on the 20, so it's negative 14x. And then the 8 is positive, so I write plus 8. Okay, for number 3, my like terms are r to the 4th and r to the 4th. That means I can add 0.07 and 0.19 together and get 0.26. So I'm going to have 0.26 r to the 4th, because when you add, exponents don't change, and there was nothing to add to the r cubed. So I just tack that on the end. And that is as simplified as I can make it. Number 8, when you have an addition sign in between your two sets of parentheses, the parentheses don't even matter. So I'm just basically going to ignore those parentheses because it was a plus sign. So I'm going to rewrite it with the like terms next to each other. So 3.7q squared plus 4.3q squared. Then I've got a minus 8q and a minus 2.9q, a plus 3.7, and a plus 1.6. So 3.7 plus 4.3 That's going to be 8. So 8.0 I can just write as 8q squared. Then I can combine a negative 8 and a negative 2.9. Same signs add. So that's going to be actually 8.0 and 2.9. So that's going to add up to 10.9. Keep the sign on the 8. So that's negative 10.9q. And then if I add 3.7 plus 1.1, that's going to be 4.8. Number 15, you have to write a polynomial that represents the measure of angle ABD. Well, angle ABD is the whole big angle, which means I have to add the two little angles together. So I have to add 8a squared minus 2a plus 5 plus 7a plus 4. And since I was adding everything, the parentheses didn't matter, so I just dropped the parentheses. So there's no term that's like 8a squared, but I have like terms in negative 2a and negative 7a. Different signs subtract, keep the sign on the 7, so that's 5a. And then 5 and 4 are like terms, so I can add those together, 5 plus 4, and get 9.